Ah! Greetings, brethren, I am the CloakingDonkey, and we're back with the Donkey Awards for 2016 and going into 2017. This time with the top 5 worst free-to-play cash shops, just to let you know what exactly you're getting yourself into when you choose one of these free-to-play games. And coming in at number 5, we have Lord of the Rings Online. Lord of the Rings Online being a venerable title in the genre, I would first like to say that I don't particularly hate this game. I think Lord of the Rings Online by itself is actually a very good MMORPG. And you can certainly get a lot of enjoyment out of this game if you are willing to subscribe. Because this is really the problem with Lotro. It is just not a good free-to-play game. It was originally made to be a premium MMORPG and then transitioned into free-to-play, and the way they did it back then is just very, very restrictive by today's standards. Lord of the Rings Online was one of the very first Western MMOs to transition from premium to free-to-play, and as such I think they just weren't quite sure yet what to do with this. And so their free-to-play model kind of is more like a free trial. The first about 20 levels and the first couple of zones are entirely free to play, no problem. But after that, if you really want to do all the quests, and well, Lord of the Rings Online really is about the quests and the story of the various zones of Middle-earth, then you are either going to have to subscribe to unlock everything, or you're gonna have to buy specific packs to unlock quest blocks within the zone. This, I guess, has the advantage that you don't have to unlock every single zone. You can just unlock a few and skip a few that you're just not interested in, or that you've already kind of leveled past. But if you're not willing to subscribe, you are actually paying quite a lot of money to just unlock all of these quests. The good thing about their free-to-play system is that there certainly isn't anything that I would call blatantly pay-to-win that you can buy from their cash shop. But the real problem with the free-to-play in Lotro is that it is everywhere. It is really annoying and constantly takes you out of the experience. And that's quite bad in a game like Lord of the Rings Online, where everything you do relies so much on the immersion in the Lord of the Rings universe. One second you're in the Shire talking to a bunch of hobbits, and the next second the game throws a bunch of cash shop nonsense at you, reminding that you are in fact playing a free-to-play game and it is now time to collect your dues. The good thing about their system is that if you subscribe, you can actually ignore the cash shop for the most part. A lot of the more modern free-to-play games that offer an optional subscription will give you more game content for free, but if you do subscribe, you will still be tied to the cash shop. There will still be things you have to get from there. And so that's definitely a point for Lord of the Rings Online. Following at number 4, we have Star Wars: The Old Republic. Now, while Star Wars: The Old Republic definitely offers you a lot of content for your free-to-play experience, that is to say you can access every class and level entirely from level 1 to the max level, entirely free of charge. You can experience everything there is to experience from the leveling experience and a few of the other things. And so you might think, that's really great, everything is free, isn't it? Well, if it wasn't for them giving you an exceptionally hard time actually playing and enjoying the game. Because the things they hide behind their optional subscription are all quality of life improvements. Bigger bags, additional hotbars, auction house features, crafting features. If you're not subscribing monthly, they are even restricting how many battlegrounds and dungeons you can do per week. And so just on that basic note, it doesn't feel as fun to play the game, because while they give you all this content to explore, it just feels like they're constantly throwing wrenches in your feet to try and get you to subscribe to their game. But on top of that, even if you do subscribe, there's still plenty of stuff in the cash shop that you simply cannot get anywhere else. So even if you give them $15 a month, there's still plenty of content locked behind the cash shop. And then beyond that, the cash shop sadly also has some of the more unsavory trappings like lockboxes. I am a very staunch opponent of lockboxes. In my opinion, they are nothing but trying to get kids to gamble, and that is definitely not okay with me. Coming in at number 3 is Rift. A game that, just like so many other Western MMORPGs of the last 10 years, had been developed as a premium MMORPG with a box price and a mandatory subscription, and was then later transformed into a free-to-play game. And when Rift did go free-to-play, it really wasn't so bad. They gave you an optional subscription, but to be honest, you didn't really even need that optional subscription. It gave you a bunch of extra experience and mount speed and all that sort of stuff that's really just comfort, but they didn't really limit you that much without the subscription. And most of the stuff in the cash shop was experience potions and cosmetics. But sadly, since then, the Rift cash shop has gotten worse and worse and worse. They introduced everyone's favorite, the gambling lockboxes, and they constantly release new lockboxes that give you tiny, ridiculous chances to get super funky mounts. But that is not all. They also lock a bunch of crafting stuff and housing stuff behind the cash shop. And most egregiously, there's even a feature, the earring slot, which is an actual item slot on your character, and you have to unlock that part in the cash shop. Now that is undoubtedly pay to win, because it directly affects your character's power. And speaking of pay to win, you can also buy actual gear for your character on the cash shop. Now, admittedly, this gear isn't amazing. It's generally sort of starter gear for the max level, but it is still starter gear for the max level. You can buy actual power for your character, and that is something I simply find unacceptable in any free-to-play game. And while Rift's free-to-play really wasn't that bad in the early days, it really has gotten to a point where pretty much everything they do with Rift seems to be entirely designed around the cash shop. And not the other way around, which is what it should be like. It should always be they design a game and then there is a cash shop where you can maybe buy some things. It should never be, hey, let's make this because it fits great in the cash shop. Now look, Rift has tons of free content, and there's definitely a lot of enjoyment that you're going to be able to get out of playing Rift for free, because unlike Star Wars: The Old Republic, it really doesn't limit you to as few dungeon runs or anything like that. Your experience rate is a little bit slower, but it's really not that bad. The real problem with Rift definitely comes in the stuff you can buy in the cash shop, and some of that is just unacceptable and egregious. And then in second place we have Algae, and Algae only very narrowly missed number 1 on this list, I can tell you that. When Algae originally released in Korea, it was also a subscription-based game, which is incredibly rare for a Korean game. Most Korean games just are designed around free-to-play. But this one wasn't. Sadly, it really didn't do that well on the Korean market because the way they consume their MMORPGs is just so different from how we consume ours. And so a subscription model just totally didn't work for them. And so they slightly redesigned the game to be a free-to-play game. The problem is they did it in a way that just doesn't work. Because the game is designed around a premium experience, all of the cash shop features, all of the free-to-play trappings feel entirely tacked on and out of place. And on top of that, they went with an A-level garbage cash shop, even for a Korean game. I mean, we probably all know here that there are a lot of pay-to-win Korean grinder MMORPGs. And RHH definitely wanted to compete with the most awful of them. And so the game has plenty of restrictions for your free-to-play games, such as pretty much all housing is unavailable to you if you are on a free account. If you want to do anything pertaining to housing, really, apart from the tiniest farm, then you are going to have to subscribe, because otherwise, yep, that's right, you're going to have to subscribe to unlock an entire feature. And I don't think there's an item on the cash shop that unlocks this feature either. There are a few things on the cash shop that will unlock some of the subscription features, such as the auction house stuff. And yeah, that's right, auction house is also very limited for free-to-play players. And with housing being pretty much entirely unavailable to you, that also makes it very, very hard for you to do any of the crafting. The crafting is so very reliant on planting your own trees, planting your own plants and stuff that you can harvest, and all this sort of thing. Meaning it's going to be so difficult for you to do anything in crafting at all. You're probably going to be able to do some smithing, because most of that stuff comes from open world nodes. But as soon as you need any wood or plants, you are going to be in trouble. Now, if this was everything bad about the cash shop, it would already be pretty damn bad. But that's nowhere near where it stops, because the best armor in the game pretty much is crafted. Now you might think, hey, best armor is crafted? That sounds wonderful! Crafting is important! Huzzah! That's something we like, isn't it? Sure, but the problem is the crafting of these items is incredibly random. Not only do you get random stats on your armor pieces when you craft them, but upgrading them also is only a chance. And to improve the chance of upgrading your armor in rarity, you need specific stones. The lower tier stones you can get, but the higher tier stones, exactly, you have to get from the cash shop. And they are not cheap. And upgrading your armor in rarity is incredibly important, because a couple of ranks of rarity can make a huge difference in power. If you have a heroic level armor, which is relatively easy to achieve on a free-to-play budget over a reasonable amount of time, then you are not going to be able to fight against anyone who has an armor 4 or 5 ranks higher than that. They are going to wipe the floor with you, and you are literally going to hit them for 1 to 10 damage a shot, while they punch you in the face for a couple of thousand. The PvP in this game is incredibly pay to win, because to make these higher grade armors, you pretty much have to get those stones from the cash shop. There just really isn't a way around it. And sure, you can buy them on the auction house from other people who bought them on the cash shop, but that still means they come from the cash shop. Somebody has to invest money to get these stones, even if it isn't necessarily you specifically. And if you try to get all this stuff for gold, you can start grinding your gold now, and maybe in a couple of years you'll have your amazing pay-to-win armor. For all of the great content and all of the awesome seafaring and all this cool stuff that RGH has, it is an incredibly flawed game that is very, very pay-to-win. But it does not beat the game that comes in first place, and that is Allots Online. Now, Allots Online isn't any more pay to win really than Archage. It is more that Allots Online is filled to the brim with annoyances, and to get rid of those annoyances, you have to go to the cash shop to get the corresponding item to remove that annoyance. Now, the reason I put Allots Online at number 1 is because I find this game to be a tragedy. I played this game when it was in closed beta, sometime back in 2008 or 2009 or something like that. And I thought the game was absolutely fantastic. At the time it had way better graphics than World of Warcraft, much sharper textures, and was just beautiful overall. And it had a really interesting world as well that was so different from your average sort of Lord of the Ringsy type fantasy. I had these two interesting factions that were basically fantasy Soviets and fantasy Tsar Russians, and all of that was so intriguing and so cool, and the world was awesomely built, and they had a lot of cool features and dungeons, and the classes were interesting, and seriously, everything about this game was so damn cool, and I was really looking forward to it coming out. And then it went into open beta, they sold it to a new publisher, and that publisher saw fit to turn the game into one of the most awful free-to-play games on the market. Unlike a lot of other free-to-play games, and even unlike a bunch of them on this list, this game does not have a subscription option to skip all the bullshit. They did introduce a subscription server sometime last year that actually does let you skip all of the cash shop stuff. All of the cash shop stuff is removed, and it's basically the game that it was back in closed beta. The problem is, it's not 2008 or 2009 anymore, it's 2017. So obviously most people just don't care about this game anymore, because at this point it's pretty much antique. And since nobody has any history with it, because it was awful and free to play and nobody really wanted to play it, I mean, it's been incredibly unpopular ever since it came out. That means nobody really wants to get in this game now. It's just too late. The train has left the station on Allots Online. But let's specifically check how they made this game worse. Well, the first 10 levels are actually fine, so what you see in the background probably doesn't even look that bad, to be honest. But as soon as you get past level 10 to 15, the grind really starts setting in, and everything takes forever. The mobs are really tough and you have a high chance of dying a lot. And that is the first annoyance they throw in your way. Because when you die, you get a death penalty, and that death penalty is really awful. It takes most of your stats away, it takes most of your hit points away for like half an hour. It is probably one of the worst resurrection negative effects that I've ever seen in any MMORPG. And the worst part is, there's no way to get rid of it. The only thing you can do is get an item from the cash shop that prevents the death penalty. So it's not even that you swallow that consumable from the cash shop and the death sickness thingy goes away. Nope, you have to chug that shit in advance and then you don't get the death sickness. Isn't that fantastic? That means basically if you play 2 to 3 hours a day, you need 6 of those consumables a day, just in case you ever get the death sickness, because you know, that would end your game session pretty much. It is an absolutely egregious and horrendous model, and it is no wonder whatsoever that this game flopped hard in North America and Europe. It still did alright-ish in Russia, but it absolutely didn't do well anywhere else. And the biggest problem really was that there was no way of skipping it with a subscription. You know, if I want to play Lord of the Rings online, I can just subscribe to it and skip most of the annoyances. That's great, because I don't necessarily mind that. But that really didn't work in Outlaws Online at all. So even the people who are willing to subscribe didn't want to touch it, because if you played it enough, you could easily spend hundreds of euros a month on this game without even blinking, without even buying anything significant from the cash shop. Just the basic utilities that make the game not fucking horrendous. And it is just one of those games that really deserves to rot in hell. Alright guys, stay tuned for the next lists. They should come in a little bit more of a quick succession than these first two, and there's still a good 2 to 4 lists to come. But until then, I've been the CloakingDonkey, and I'll see you in another video!